Cool. All right. We are going to get started. Thank you and good evening to everybody. Appreciate folks joining. This is the May meeting of Manhattan Community Board 4's ACES committee. We have a pretty packed agenda tonight. A couple of presentations. We'll kick things off though with our open session, which is an opportunity for anyone who would like to speak for 2 minutes on any topic that he, she, or they would like. After open session closes, we will shift gears. We have presentations from the DOE team to talk a little bit about Summer Rising program. CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies will follow with their presentation. And then I see DSNY is here, and they are back to discuss the graffiti-free program. We are holding this meeting virtually, which we currently have permission to do. We will get started without any further ado. If you'd like to speak during the open session, you can indicate that now by using the raise hand feature in Zoom. It should be at the bottom. Oops, I did not mean to actually raise my hand of your Zoom screen. And we will take anyone from the public or anyone on the board who'd like to speak on any matter. Leslie, I see your hand is up. So let's go to you first. You have 2 minutes from whenever you begin.
Well, I'm a placeholder. I don't have anything, but there is a young 8th grader from the Clinton School who wants to come on and talk. He is just at swim lesson right now. So his name is Julian Voss. He went to PS 111 and he wants to complete his merit badge for public speaking. So he has a speech ready. So I said, if it would indulge if we can indulge the chairs, that maybe new business at the end, he can come on. I said that we do this at the beginning of the meeting. He just didn't want to miss it, but I wanted to ask your permission and just put that placeholder there.
I think understanding the time constraints of swimming and homework and bedtime, we might be able to let that young person speak whenever he is able to come on. So if someone could just flag for us in between items. We don't want to interrupt any of the presentations, but whenever he's sort of able to join us, we can make sure that he gets in. Go ahead, Jesse.
Just one quick slight change to the agenda, Kit, if it'd be okay. I did give Stephen at DSNY inclination that he would be able to go after DOE, if that's all right. I appreciate it.
That is all right. And I'm guessing maybe you flagged that to me, and it's my fault that I didn't remember. So thank you for tactfully calling it out. So we'll lead off with DOE because I'm not seeing any other hands at the moment. The way that presentations usually run is folks give their presentation and then there's an opportunity first for committee members to ask questions and then for folks from the public to ask questions. And then depending on the topic, there's sometimes a conversation that follows among board members about whether we want to take any action as a result of what we've heard. Mr. Higgins, show is yours. And when you've done your presentation, we'll open it up for questions. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Reggie Higgins. I am one of the 2 deputy superintendents here in District 2. And tonight, I'm just going to talk briefly. I was given a few questions that, I guess the CV4 has been thinking about in regard to the asylum seekers, around Summer Rising, and about 3K and pre-K. And so I'm going to start with just the first question that I was given. And so the question really was, how many students in temporary housing are there in District 2? What percentage of students in temporary housing in District 2 are asylum seekers? And so, I went to the DOE to inquire about that exact answer. And so the response is that the Department of Ed does not track immigration status, and this year is not providing data about the asylum seekers. I was encouraged just to look at public data, which is our students in temporary housing, and I am here to share that. So in District 2, there are 3,492 students that are currently in temporary housing out of 21,000, and that's about 16.6%. The other question was how many asylum seekers are temporarily housed in Community Board 4 in the various locations. I was not given that information. The third question was, how many asylum seekers are attending elementary and middle schools located in CB4? And again, I can't really give information about asylum seekers. So I just went and examined the students in temporary housing. And so for PS11, there are 133 students. That is 17% of the student population. For PS33, there are 152 students. That is 24% of the student body population. PS51 has 153 students. That is 32% of the student body. PS111 has 148 students. That is 36% of the student population. Lab Middle School has 11 students. That is 2% of the student population. Midtown West has 64 students in temporary housing. That is 2% of the overall body. And City Knoll Middle School has 80 students in temporary housing, and that is 40% of the total student body. How many summarizing seats will there be in CB4 and at which school? So for CB4, we opened up PS111 because a lot of the students that are currently asylum seekers live in this particular area. And so we needed a school for K-5 that could house those students. And so it will be PS111. I spoke with the principals, and the first question I asked, because the enrollment process this year is a little different. It is no longer first come, first serve. It is really based on priority. And still students that are mandated, are considered to receive a priority, but also students that are in temporary housing and in foster care. And so I don't have an exact number of the seats that will be available for CB4, but please know that PS111 is the location that will house many of the schools. PS11's there, PS33, PS51, Midtown West is also there, and of course 111. Our middle schools that are serving asylum seekers are all going to be housed at Baruch Middle School. Will there be a summarizing program in CB4 for bilingual Spanish? I won't use the language of bilingual Spanish. There will be a Title III program that is there to specifically help students that are learning English as a second language, and it will be housed at PS111. I did not get a response around the questions for 3K pre-K seats, nor a follow-up from the Early Childhood Portfolio Office about 3K pre-K. So I will have to send an email just to kind of share when they do present that information to me. And at this time, I will answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the effort that you put into digging up as much info as you could and sharing it with us tonight. We go in the order that I see them. And so we'll start with Charlie, then we'll go to Josephine, and then we'll go to Matt, and then Katie, at least to start.
Thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you, Kit. I just wanted a clarification about some of the numbers. Just anecdotally, I think the population at PS2 and 2 feels a lot higher than, did you say 2%? What was the number of students at Midtown West?
64.
64 total students, because I think the school only has, I think, like 400 students, so that would be much more than 2%.
This is the number that was just in the system. That
okay, perhaps it's accounting for the shared middle school that's there or something like that. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hi, Reggie. How are you? Thank you so much for your time and coming to see you. It's very nice to meet you. So I guess one of the questions that I have, I know that you guys are not keeping track of immigration status, but I think one of the issues is that, we're just trying to ensure that we have enough Spanish language teachers, staff, social workers, or maybe that's not what you feel that is needed at this point. And so maybe that's a question that we now have, now that this has been, the kids have been here for a year. I'm sure, you probably have a better understanding of what their needs are. So, we're a community board here, and what we do is we try to write letters to our electeds to, help our schools. So I guess the question that I have for you then would be, What do you foresee the needs being right now or in the fall? Are you seeing any movement with families in terms of, are we expecting to see the same families at the school, or are families do you see that families are leaving? Are we expecting more families? We're just kind of trying to anticipate what's going on. So maybe this year we can have a better handle on it. Thank you.
No, thank you. That's a very good question. I actually could take that back to the team that oversees the students in temporary housing and is really doing the work with the asylum seekers and families. And I think that's a very good question, and I will have her to follow up. Can you make sure that I'll put my email so we can exchange email, and I will get you a response, because I think that's a very valid question on ways that, the community board can support the work of our schools. So thank you.
Okay, I assume you're talking about Iris Gersten, because she comes here every once in a while and she does speak to us, and she's really fantastic. But
Yeah.
We do call on her quite a bit.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's nice to hear another voice and get another perspective. So
I love Iris, and I would not try to usurp her authority in any way. She is the expert in all of these related matters. So I would still show deference to Iris.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
One small footnote before we go to Matt, Mr. Higgins, we don't actually have a chat, I believe. And so if you could just share your info with Jesse, he can make sure it gets to Josephine and anyone else in terms of follow-up.
Will do. Thank you.
All yours, Matt.
Thanks, Kit. Hi, Reggie. Thanks for being here. I just had a question about, I know in the past, Summer Rising has been just a very popular summer program for families in New York City. And I was just curious what enrollment looks like this summer. And I believe the application is now closed, correct? It closed on May 1. And I was just curious if, if that is a hard close, or if there's talk of reopening the application, if numbers, I don't know, if are not, where city might think they should be, and just as far as engaging families to make sure that they know that the program is at PS 111. And yeah, just curious about enrollment levels and the application reopening, if there is still opportunities for families to apply.
So I'll work backwards. So there is no conversation on reopening the enrollment. However, if a family would still like to apply, they could apply late. So they will be considered like a late application. There is a lot of demand for Summer Rising this year. And so, before, I don't want to speak out of turn. I know that there is someone from Summer Rising, Angela Falloyer, that oversees the Summer Rising operations. But when she and I have been in communication, there is a lot of demand for families for Summer Rising this year. I think the thing I like about what they did this year was be very strategic and intentional in identifying who really needs a service. I think most families in New York City could benefit from Summer Rising. And I think that there are families that are just in different situations that need this resource or service a lot more. And so that's why the city has ensured that they are prioritizing certain groups of students, of course, mandated students that are in students in temporary housing, students in foster care, students, IEPs, students that really need the service. And so I think that, yes, they're going to do the best that they can to accommodate. Part of the process has really been to try to do a lot more outreach before the deadline to inform families that they should really try to apply for as many programs that they can, with the hopes that they will receive placement in one of those preferred locations. And I think that that is the information that we have been trying to do before the May 1st deadline. But I know that there is a lot of demand for Summer Rising this year. And this was before the deadline even closed.
Thank you.
All right, Katie is up next, Maria's on deck, and then the last hand I currently see is Leslie. So unless we get a new one, we'll close out committee members and move on to the public after that.
Great. So I thought the previous questions were great, and thank you for the answers, and thank you for your presentation. Just Two quick questions. The first one was, you talked about how the demand for summer rising has increased and that a lot of families want to be part of it. I was just wondering, was the budget increase this year for summer rising? And then also budget related. But the second question is, we've heard about these budget cuts that are coming. And I was wondering if you could talk to us about what budget cuts are. I mean, I know that not everything has been finalized yet, but if you could talk to us a little bit about what budget cuts are foreseen for the budgets that will be released shortly, and where you feel, where you feel that the budget cuts are going to happen, and is it going to impact the number of Spanish-speaking people that you're trying to hire? Because we know that that's been a challenge. Thanks.
So the budget questions would probably be, those conversations do not take place with the deputy superintendents. They happen with Superintendent Kelly McGuire. And so I'm not going to try to act like I know more than a superintendent. I will ask him these questions because I think that he'll be better equipped to answer them about the budget cuts. And I have no information if there were any increases or decreases regarding like summarizing or funding sources like that. That's not within my authority. Yeah, I deal more with the operations and setting it up, making sure that folks get what they need and supporting our schools.
Okay, then I guess actually sort of then just related, since you don't know the budget, but have you on the operational side been able to fill the jobs that have been posted for have you been able to fill them for the jobs posted in the schools? MCB4, I know that they were looking for more Spanish speakers and that sort of thing.
So for summarizing right now, our first responsibility was ensuring that we identified principals that would be in charge of the summarizing location. The second task was really trying to work with identifying an assistant principal who would be the site supervisor. And now that those two positions are filled, they really work with the affiliated principals to encourage staff, teachers, school aides, and other individuals to really sign up to take on the task. As you can imagine, in the summertime, some folks just value having a respite away from like full-time schoolwork. And so I think that that's the work that's happening right now with the principals in charge, the assistant principal supervisor, and the affiliated principals, really trying to encourage your staff members, if they would like to, just work for summer rising. So I think that that's the work that's happening right now.
Got it. All right, thank you.
Sure.
You're up, Maria.
My questions were actually around summer rising. So I think if I have more, I'll come back around, but thank you.
I stand corrected. Leslie, your turn.
Thanks, Kit, and whoever Kit's with. Mr. Higgins, thank you so much for joining us. I just have a question. I want to piggyback a little bit of what Josephine was mentioning. So when there is a great influx at one time of English as second language students, right? You know that the dynamics of the classroom changes quite a bit. I just didn't know if the DO, I have actually a few questions, but does the DOE have a resource bucket or something? Because then the resources kind of shift, right? Or the needed resources, I should say, shifts a little of what the school or what those classroom, needs. Is there like a, okay, well now you said 30 to 40% are now going into our schools are, temporary, or we, like you said, you don't have the immigrant status, but some of are those students as well. Is there a resource bucket? Like, okay, well now, because this is changing, we need this, and this for staff, because that's what I think we are writing letters about. We're saying we need this, and this. And I would think DOE would recognize that before we ask for it. Or am I asking too much?
I mean, so let me unpack this question. So I think that one of the things that's most important are human resources. I think, and the human resources right now are the teachers that are receiving students. And so I think, you know, there are two things that happen in a school, in a classroom. And I'll use language that I learned when I was at Bank Street. There's what we call an inviting space where kids feel welcome, they feel emotionally and physically safe, because the teachers are really being very intentional in developing the space where the child feels seen, valued, and heard. Then there's this other space called the containing space where academic instruction takes place. And so what happened when our students arrived, that unfortunately schools had to quickly shift into thinking about how do they create this inviting space still while addressing some of the more basic needs that kids and families needed as they presented themselves at the school. And so they were trying to balance two things. How do we respond to kids that have experienced trauma and their families? And at the same time, how do we continue to do the work of facilitating instruction? And so where there are gaps, absolutely. Where there are curriculum resources that were needed, where the materials that were needed, the teachers quickly had to learn how to shift and think about how do you create a classroom that's accessible for students where English is not their first language. All of those things had to happen very quickly. At the district level, there are members on our team who really are specialists that went in, facilitated professional learning for teams and schools on what that work might look like. And yes, there are still things that schools still need to continue to improve upon for that learning experience for students. You know, sometimes for me, it's just like, what is the best practice and something that makes the classroom more accessible for all learners, but especially for students where English is not the first language. And I think it gives us an opportunity now that we've had this experience where it was kind of real life crisis presenting itself to really be even more thoughtful about how we plan for the upcoming school year. So I think that there are lessons that are learned. There are curriculum resources that schools have identified that are very beneficial, that are really showing to have a lot of positive impact for students around their performance. But I still think that there are schools that still need human resources, even even teachers that have ENL license that could, you know, better provide even more sufficient services for students is something that schools need. But I think that those are the things that matter the most. But before I would even focus on that, one of the huge gaps for me, and this is because I'm very passionate about like social emotional learning and the work that needs to happen around the inviting space, I think that we also need a lot of support, because that's the question mark that still lingers for me. Like, how are schools, you know, being very thoughtful of creating the inviting space? At the district level, we are part of a grant. And so we have been able to invite all of our schools that serve students that have a lot of asylum-seeking children and families to participate in Bank Street's emotion responsive practice using the Teddy Bears curriculum to really create classrooms that are healing and really to be more responsive to the trauma that kids have faced. Because if you don't respond to it, it doesn't go away. And unfortunately, what happens, it, you know, becomes worse as kids are sitting in a classroom and it's not even being addressed. And so we're trying to just think about how can we continue to be more supportive and responsive, and at the same time continue to support our schools with thinking about what are the best practices that are needed, in addition to ensuring that we have the human resources, meaning that we have the staff members, teachers that can do this work.
Thank you for that. And I want to, hold on, thank you for that. But it is our job to advocate for those who can't speak themselves. And that's what I think this board and this committee in particular does a very good job. But I know you've heard this, and this might be under the kill two birds with one stone. So in addition to the asylum seekers and those that are now coming into the schools, we are hearing a lot from the current parents. So, you know, current parents are saying, you know, they know, you know, what needs to be done, but they're saying my child is now in a classroom just given a worksheet for 2 hours because the teacher is putting out fires over here. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to deal with other responsibilities. So I think it's twofold. I mean, those programs are great, and on the support programs outside the schools are great, but in the classroom, we also have parents who, who are, I don't want to say regular, or already there, or already students that are there that are kind of also having to be neglected a little bit because of very stretched thin teachers. And I'm sure you're aware of this, though, right? That's why I just wanted to point that out, because I think, like, if you bring those resources in the school, it's two birds with one stone, right? Those students will be getting the help as well.
Yes, and so I just want to speak to that. I have been in all of our schools, and one of the things that I am still impressed are the fact that still high levels of academic instruction are taking place across our district, like across the classrooms that I visit. And I know that when Kelly and myself visit schools, that we change the dynamic. The superintendent or the deputy superintendents are visiting the building. And so folks want to ensure that we have a really great visit. But I also don't feel that it's a dog and pony show, because having been a former teacher, I understand that the work that teachers are doing is very thoughtful, and teachers are doing the best that they can to ensure that all of their students are successful. Are there probably examples? And I would say that those are probably more outlier situations where a child is getting a worksheet. Across our district. The teachers teach at a certain level. Like District 2 is known for a lot of academic success, and happens because of the work that our teachers put in and do with all of our students. And I know that our principals are doing the very best that they can to monitor that. So I would ask you or anyone on this call, if you have a specific, example of a parent feeling that, hey, my child's learning has changed and now my child is receiving a worksheet, please reach out to me and we will follow up with that principal and that particular school to ensure that that is addressed, because that should not be taking place in any of our schools for any students.
Not seeing any other hands from board members, and I also don't see any hands from the attendees section. So I'm going to give that one more second and then say that we have reached our limit. All right. Again, sir, thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate the work you did on the front end to respond to our questions, especially since it required you to do some tracking down of data, and then it sounds like some calculations, since it's not the data that already exists in DOE systems. We hope that even though you're a Manchester United fan, apparently, this is not your last visit to Manhattan Community Board to interact with us on the ACES committee. I'm actually going to move us on to the next agenda item with DSNY before the discussion we would normally have about whether we want to take any next steps, just because it sounds like there are some time constraints there. But if we do end up passing a motion and or writing a letter, we will loop back with you and your team, and you'll hear about it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Everyone, have a good evening.
All right. We're going to move on to a presentation on the graffiti free program from DSNY. Stephen, it's all you whenever you're ready.
Good evening, everyone. Stephen Caruso, Citywide Community Affairs Officer for the New York City Department of Sanitation here. Thank you so much for inviting me to join. Marissa Yanni is usually the representative that attends these meetings with Community Board 4, but I was asked to join this meeting tonight to speak a little bit more on our role in graffiti removal. So as of April 1st, DSNY stepped in to manage graffiti-free NYC. The process has not changed in that if folks want to place a complaint or for a service request, you can still call 311 to do so. Property owners are contacted, they receive a waiver, which they need to submit in order for us to go on out there and begin the work. So that has not changed. The changes that are taking place are going to be internally, right? So we've been streamlining the process. We are the experts when it comes to cleaning, whether it be litter or graffiti, etc. So we're taking some of our processes from sanitation and moving them over to the graffiti removal program, right? Some of those processes include better record keeping, and recording of data, right? Because we know that we are a data-driven city. We need that data. It helps us to allocate resources and get funding. So we utilize certain platforms within the department that can really keep track of all types of information all in one place and then filter it out as need be. So we've taken all of these requests which go into the system and put them into our platform, which the supervisors then use to go on out. And this is probably one of the biggest achievements thus far. We're going out and we're pre-vetting locations. So rather than in the past, whereas the service requests would come in, EDC would generate a route, and then the crews would be assigned routes for the day. At times, what would happen is they would get to the sites and there would be no graffiti on location, there would be no access or owner refused. Being that we're going out there ahead of time, we know for a fact that there is graffiti on location, and then we build our routes around that. So when we dispatch crews in the morning and they're assigned X amount of locations for the day, we know that they're going to be able to clean all of those locations and ultimately increase productivity. So that's just one of the things that we've done. Very happy to say that within the first 2 weeks of sanitation managing, we have visited, inspected, and cleaned over 600 locations, which is huge. That includes both painting and power wash jobs. Depending on the type of graffiti, that's going to determine if it's going to be a paint job or a power wash job. Power washing jobs take a little bit longer. So to say that we've gone out and within 10 working days, having inspected and cleaned over 600 sites is huge. So ultimately, we're the boots on the ground. We're managing the day-to-day operations, everything from scheduling and staffing to recording the data, building out the routes. And thus far, we've been very successful. And as we get more comfortable in our role there and just streamline the process a bit more, I imagine that we're just going to continue to be even more efficient and productive as time goes on. So our main focus at the moment is catching up on some backlog work. When we took over, there were quite a bit of service requests in the queue for cleaning. So that's the main focus right now, is to just catch up on all that backlog. Of course, we're taking new service requests as well. We're incorporating them into our routes, but we do have some work to do and we're getting it done. So if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the presentation. And we'll shift to questions. David has his hand up first. After David, we'll hear from Blake, and then we'll go to Matt, at least initially.
Hi, thank you for your presentation and your time. I'm curious, what is considered graffiti? I mean, I know the difference between tagging, but years ago, and I'm aging myself, a lot of the graffiti was artwork. It was like, Banksy became, popular. So what if you see a really good piece of art and it's reported as graffiti, how does it work? I mean, because I'm totally, maybe I should have read up on it when you were on the agenda, but I did not. So what's your criteria? And thank you again.
Hi, David. So that's actually a really good question. We wouldn't remove any type of artwork or murals. We don't touch those. Although if a property owner was to contact us and say that they did want it removed from their property, it wasn't authorized to be there. Although the artist may have thought to put it there, but the property owner doesn't want it, they can tell us that it needs to be removed, and we will do it. But if we do report to a location and we find that it's a mural, we take a step back and we wouldn't clean it.
Any follow-up, David? Or that...
presentation.
Sorry, Blake, just want to make sure that
follow-up. Thank you again. No follow-up. I appreciate it.
Cool. Apologize for interrupting you, Blake.
Oh, no worries. I think the concern the last time we heard about graffiti free was both the throughput of number of sites remediated, which sounds like DSNY has really picked up the pace there, but also just the response to the requester. So I'm wondering, what the average time between the approval from the property owner and the cleaning has been, or you're targeting, and if the requesters are receiving any sort of feedback, if there's an issue, say, getting the approval or with another step in the process leading up to the cleaning.
Yep, so that's all information that you'll be able to get from 311. As you would any other service request, they'll be able to provide you with updates. I don't know if they give you all the details though. So if you were to place a service request and we get out there and we find that we don't have access, let's just say that it requires us to go behind a locked fence or something like that. I don't know if 311 would report that back, or if it would just come back as not on location or something along those lines. So I could find out and get back to you because I'm curious myself. Now, as far as turnaround time, it's hard for me to speak on turnaround time just because we've only been managing for a month. And as I had mentioned a little bit earlier, as of right now, the focus is really on playing catch up. So it's not that we have a blank canvas at the moment, whereas I could say, 250 service requests came in this week and we were able to get through all 250 or only 200 of them. So that's probably going to be a question that we might have to shelf for right now, and maybe within the next few months we could get you some more accurate information.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think that it would be nice to show a target, to the requesters, if at the time of form submission, they had some expectation of, even if it is, a couple of weeks until we expect a remediation. Thank you.
Sure.
Matt is currently the last hand that I'm seeing, so unless others go up, we'll turn it over to attendees and then potentially close this item out.
Hi, Stephen. Good to see you. Have a few questions sort of following up on Blake's, and I guess I just wanted to confirm, if someone was to put in a 311 request and they put in the address, I heard at one point, and I think I heard this from EDC, that the waiver form that needs to be sent is like automatically sent to the property owner for them to fill out. Is that accurate? Is that what happens?
That's true. And by the way, it's nice to see you too, Matt. It's been a while. So yes, if somebody was to call through and place a complaint for graffiti, whether it's their property or someone else's property, the property owner is going to receive two forms: one, a notice of intent to clean, and two, a waiver. So the waiver is basically just going to be them giving us permission to access the property to go on and clean. We have paper forms that we bring with us when we go out to sites. If we happen to notice graffiti as we're cleaning one location, maybe a neighboring property has it, we'll literally go on and speak to the business owner or for the property owner. And if they want to fill it out on the spot, they could do that. And then we will manually put it into the system for them. But there is a digital form also. So if you go online, you could do it digitally, which is great because then it automatically goes into our system and it'll end up in the queue that much quicker. But if we do receive if we do receive a paper form, we still have the ability to manually upload it into the system. It's just takes a little bit longer to do.
Okay, great. And then it sounds like you're working on a backlog of requests. And I'm just wondering, in terms of how you all prioritize requests. I know like sometimes people are encouraged to submit multiple 311 requests, and that sort of helps expedite or that helps prioritize certain issues. I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case for graffiti removal requests, but I'm just wondering, is that helpful when there are multiple 311 requests for graffiti, as far as how you are all sort of responding to the complaints and how you prioritize your own list?
So the way that it works with graffiti is that there can only be one service request on file for that specific address. So you don't even have the ability at this point to place multiple complaints, which in my opinion is actually it's better off that way, because then you don't have the duplicate service requests coming in. But as far as prioritizing, again, at this point, just going through the backlog, if the community board has any locations that you would like to make a priority, you could reach out to the community affairs office with the service request number and let them know the reason why you feel as though it needs to be prioritized. Of course, if there's any type of graffiti that has explicit language, or if there's anything that's anti-Semitic, that is something that we would address immediately. But if it's just a matter of, it's unsightly, it will be removed. It just might take some time. But the community board is always welcome to send any priority requests that way, as you do with any other service requests.
Great. Thanks, Stephen. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
We're going to hear from at least two more folks. Katie is going to be next, and then David's hand went back up.
Great. Thanks for all this. Just a quick question. You mentioned that part of the process is getting the property owners to say it's okay and to waive, allow you guys in. And I was just wondering, I know you've only had a month experience, but are there delays, or what percentage do you think of times that you contact a property owner, do you not get a response? And so like people who live in the area or who see it, who are reporting it, are sort of left with no action because you guys haven't been able to get a response from the property owner?
Again, that's a really great question. Unfortunately, I don't have the ability to answer that this evening, but I appreciate you acknowledging that. And as we had said to Blake a few minutes earlier, I think as we just get more comfortable in the role and gather more data, maybe by one of the following meetings in the next few months, we'll be able to provide that type of information.
Okay,
with that being said,
sorry.
I was going to say, with that being said, a lot of the requests that we do get are from the actual property owners.
Oh,
yeah. And why not? Because if we're willing to go in there and do it for free, and that saves them from having to hire someone to come in and do it, it's a good deal for everybody.
And do you think that that's a piece of data that you guys will be tracking, just like when you haven't heard back from the property owner?
So we've been tracking pretty much everything. With the new administration, they're heavily focused on recording of data. So I'm sure that they already have some type of a system in place that's going to capture that information. I'm just not exactly aware of where to find it, but I can make sure to keep it on my radar. I'll make sure to mention it to Marissa Yanni, which again is the normal liaison to CB4. And when we have those stats, I'm more than happy to provide them.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Hi again. I'm sorry. You've reminded me of something I'm putting on my other hat because I serve on the NYPD hate crimes panel. When you see something that's anti-Semitic or anti-whatever, like racial, do you report it to the police before you remove it?
So a lot of times what'll happen is we're called in to just come on in and clean it. It'll either be something that's coming from City Hall or an elected official, or even at times NYPD will contact us for the removal of it. So at this point, in my experience, we haven't reached out to PD to have them go on out and take a look at it before we remove it. It's pretty much just sent our way, and it becomes a priority that it needs to be removed immediately. So
can I make the recommendation that you contact NYPD has a hate crimes task force?
Okay.
Specifically deals with this, especially if it's anti-Semitic or anti-Black, whatever it is, if it's somebody's ethnicity or even sexual orientation. If you could outreach to them, the guy's name is, I think, Gary Marcus is now the detective that's in charge of that unit.
Yeah, that might be something that we would want to consider for just protocol.
Right, that would be a great help to also the hate crimes unit.
That's a great suggestion, David. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
At least at the moment, I'm not seeing any other hands from committee members, and I don't see any from attendees. I'll give attendees a moment in case any of them would like to ask a question, but if not, we can close this out. Thank Mr. Caruso for his time, which is, I think, what we are going to do. Appreciate you coming here. Appreciate you sharing all of that information and answering our questions. We may be in touch if we have a letter coming out of the discussion that we might have later. So if you want to hop off, go ahead and do so. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
One quick just housekeeping item before Mr. Olmos from CUNY gets started. Since we gave DSNY a chance to present before the CUNY team, we're going to let the CUNY team present, and then we'll discuss all three agenda items, item 2, 3, and 4, in order before we close out. just as one small way of thanking Mr. Olmos for being understanding for the last minute switch. All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate your patience and looking forward to your presentation. Floor is yours. And my son says bye, even though you're not going anywhere.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. And thank you so much for allowing me to present today. My name is Jaime Olmos, Academic Program Specialist in the Urban Studies Department at the CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies, or SLU as we like to call it. Tonight, I will be presenting on our Master's and Advanced Certificate programs, as well as the admissions application process for the upcoming fall 2023 semester. So if technology is on my side, I will be sharing my screen in just a moment. Okay. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. Perfect. All right. Sorry about that. Try that again. Okay, everybody can see that, right? Perfect. Okay. So that is a image of 19th floor of our main building on our campus, 25 at West 43rd Street, 19th floor. Dedicated to public service and social justice. Originally named the Murphy Institute, became what is now known as the CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies back in the fall of 2018. Vibrant community of activists, intellectuals, and professionals committed to social justice. SLU provides students with several programs that provide the knowledge, tools, and resources for individuals dedicated to social justice and public service. And I can tell you all about how great our institution is, but I feel it would be better to hear it straight from our students. So let me actually play a video very quickly. Hopefully everybody can see and hear this.
A lot of the first few courses, it's really building a foundation of this is what it takes to run a city, and these are the various functions that take place, and these are the stakeholders involved. And it's learning about the history of a lot of really big cities, and it gives you a good frame of reference for understanding your own.
I think that what helped me with the certificate program and helps my daily operations at work is a lot of critical thinking. Basically becoming a little more analytical with what I do.
It's the program, this program is geared towards public workers. Those of us who work in the public or nonprofit environment. And the professors and the instructors that are teaching this program have that background. So it's not some abstract academic program. It's developed and focused around what we actually do on a day-to-day basis.
I took a course in HCA 302, which was research studies. So all the things that I learned here, I was able to implement on my job, especially writing and learning about the community. And as a city employee, you need to know how to interact with the community, all sorts of things. So the school is good for teaching you about government, local, state, and federal, and that's what we learned.
I had my own opinion about stuff. I was like, this is how the world is, this is how people are, this is how everything is, and this is the world according to Raquel. And I remember the lecturer saying that she's not there to change our minds. She's not there to like put ideas in our head. She's there to like give us another point of view. And then hopefully at the end, we will be open-minded about stuff. And I was like, yeah, but Raquel has her idea of what stuff is, right? In the end, I am not kidding you. She didn't change me, but she opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. And I look at things differently. I understood things. I saw the reason behind things. I understood policies. Because when I came in, I had my own ideas as to like, how do people get to this stage in their lives, all the things that they did, and nobody actually looked at all the policies that are created behind all of these things while these things happen. And I remember like, she changed me. She didn't plan to, but she changed me. And I think that is one of the things that happened at Murphy with me. My thought process changed.
All right, back to the presentation. Sorry. 1 second. Sorry about that. All right. Okay. We'll keep it like this for now. Sorry. All right. So at SLU, we have two main academic departments, urban studies and labor studies. And just to differentiate between the two, urban studies is the study of the city, while labor studies focuses on how workers and their organizations navigate society and the workplace with power. The urban studies program at SLU provides cutting edge research while providing students with the tools they will need to affect change. On the other end, the labor studies program builds critical thinking, analytical, and leadership skills for students to become more effective advocates for workers' rights and social justice. So for the graduate programs, we have advanced certificates and degree programs, which I'm going to go over some of these very briefly in the interest of time. And so for the Public Administration and Public Policy Certificate, it provides a master's level education for those interested in legislation, government agencies, and social services. This certificate is a valuable professional credential for workers in the public and nonprofit sectors, and for students pursuing scholarly interest in government affairs at the federal, state, and municipal levels. So students can gain a better understanding of the theories behind government policy and public sector management, while learning how to make effective recommendations. Some of the grads can pursue careers as managers in the public sector, policy analysts, researchers, and planning specialists, or as journalists covering government and public policy. Leading change and healthcare system. So this advanced certificate provides professional development for administrative and professional workers in New York City's healthcare industry. This certificate provides healthcare employees in both public and private healthcare systems an opportunity to advance their careers and serve the public more effectively. Graduates from this program can pursue careers as healthcare managers and administrators, as well as public policy analysts and advocates. The advanced certificate is a valuable credential for those working in government, nonprofit organizations, and the private healthcare systems, or for those with a scholarly interest in healthcare. Community leadership. This certificate provides students with the educational and professional credentials to help them pursue leadership path careers in public service, specifically in locally serving nonprofits, community advocacy organizations, government agencies, and legislative offices. Using New York City as the classroom, students learn how communities are organized, how nonprofits serve constituents, how to analyze the contemporary forces and trends in the field of community development, and build the skills necessary for fostering community empowerment. This certificate draws on a variety of academic disciplines and combines theory with practice in order to prepare students for leadership roles in community-based organizations. We also have some of our MAs, our master study programs. So our Urban Studies MA is designed for students pursuing both scholarly and professional interests in the political, economic, and social dynamics of contemporary urban life. Urban Studies students explore how cities grow and evolve, govern themselves, distribute goods and services, serve the public, and employ their residents. Graduates of the MA program are prepared for a range of careers in city agencies and government, research institutions, nonprofit organizations serving urban populations. Our other master's program in labor studies draws from fields of sociology, law, history, economics, political science, and labor relations to examine the opportunities and challenges facing workers and their organizations. The program strengthens the ability of students to advocate for equity and social justice in their communities. Students and graduates of the MA in Labor Studies degree work in many areas, including labor and community organizing, labor law enforcement, labor relations, human rights, public policy, and nonprofit and government services. Some students even pursue graduate studies in labor and related disciplines. So now that I've discussed some of the programs that we have to offer, we can also talk about how to fund your education. So at SLU, there are various ways to cut costs. I know a lot of people are considering, not going to school because of money. So if you're part of a union, they may be able to help with tuition reimbursement. And if they're not able to, SLU provides a variety of scholarships and grants to assist you throughout your time with us. Because our main goal at SLU is to support you in any way we can to achieve your academic goals. So in this slide, we have a breakdown of the tuition and fees based on credits. And this gives you a better sense of how the breakdown goes. So for bachelor's degrees and undergraduates, it's $305 per credit for part-time. For the master's degree, it's $470 per credit. So typically, master's degree courses are 3 credits each. So for example, if a New York State resident wants to pursue a master's or an advanced certificate, they take 1 3-credit course per semester, they'll be charged $1,410, so $1,410, not including student fees. Next steps. Admissions application for fall 2023 deadline is July 1st. First step you would take is to apply online through the CUNY system. Through there, you would apply on using the online application where you would select the CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies, and you would upload your personal statement essay that ranges from about 500 to 700 words, along with uploading your official transcript from any undergraduate institution you have attended in the past. There's also a $75 application fee that is waived if you are a veteran or member of the US military. And don't worry, we can send this presentation to you with a checklist attached if you'd like. My contact information is included here for any questions regarding the academic programs. My name, Jaime, JAIME.OLMOS @slu.cuny.edu. If you have any specific questions about the application or admissions process, you can reach out to Cher Mullings at the admissions office at admissions@slu.cuny.edu. And for those interested in attending any of our info sessions or any resources that I shared tonight, I can forward this information along with any other links to Jesse, if that is okay. Any questions I can take in just a moment, but thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir, for the presentation. Not seeing any questions at the moment, but Jesse, I imagine we might be able to use our newsletter as a way to help get the word out. If that's not out of bounds in terms of the sorts of things that we would normally advertise.
Yeah, no, that would be no problem at all.
Cool. Any questions for Mr. Olmos before we let him go? Looks like Matt has one.
Just quickly, do you all have an internship program for students? And just wondering if there's anything like that that's a requirement upon their studies.
We do have internship programs. We have a community semester. It's not a requirement, but it is an option for students where students can take 4 classes in 1 semester. We also have AmeriCorps partnerships as well. So we have different options for students who are willing to look at different avenues.
Great, thanks.
David, you're up next.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I caught the first 3 numbers, 313 of your phone number, but I didn't catch the other numbers. I was writing too slowly. I probably should have taken a picture of it. What's your phone number?
Oh, no worries.
And also, I'm interested in your urban studies master's program. I work for the New York City Fire Department as a civilian. So I'm in OSA. I don't know if they'll cover it, but we can talk offline about that.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, if anybody would like my number, it is 646-313-8332.
And thank you again.
Of course, not a problem. Thank you.
Oh,
At the moment, not seeing any other hands from folks on the committee and also not seeing any raised in attendees. I'll give it another second or two. And I think we can call that a wrap. Thank you for coming and sharing information on your program. Sounds like a really awesome combination of potential pathways for future leaders of the city. And hopefully you have at least one application incoming as a result of coming to hang out with us. Jesse's definitely sort of the best way to continue to coordinate with us. And it sounds like moving forward, we'll be able to help get out the good word about things like info sessions through our newsletter. So thank you, sir. Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for indulging me in doing things a little bit atypically, but we are going to now go back to our first presentation and second agenda item, and then we'll go through each of the presentations we've heard in order. So I ask that we sort of close up the conversation on the DOE stuff before we move on to the DSNY stuff and then to the CUNY stuff. We'll start with the presentation and responses to our questions we heard from the representative of New York City DOE. Folks are welcome to raise their hands and either share comments or if anyone would like to make a motion. See Charlie's hand first, and then we'll go to Josephine.
Sorry, just minor point of clarification because my children go to the school. I looked it up. Midtown West has 320 students, so that would be 20% and not 2%. It would have to be 3,200 students to be 2%. So I think just a math error in case anyone was interested.
Yeah, sounds like Excel formula challenge or something along those lines. But thank you for clarifying that. Josephine.
Thank you. So I just wanted to let everyone know that we did try to reach out to the head of Summer Rising and had some communication with her, but for whatever reason, she was not able to make it. So I think without
the hard data. I was really hoping to get a better sense of how many students had enrolled so far for Summer Rising versus the number of seats at PS 111, because PS 111, we usually do a summer program there every year. It may not take up the entire school. Maybe, maybe they're using the whole school now. They have a larger staff. So it's just really hard to know what to advocate for, since we actually don't have those numbers. And I guess I would say the same thing for 3K. And maybe we just pick this up again in the fall and do one of our calls with Kelly and see if we can get more numbers and information on the budgets, as Katie had suggested, because that's really important information that we need to know in order to write any kind of letter, at least as far as I know, as far as I'm concerned. So thank you.
Thanks, Josephine. Aurora, your hand was up next. And then I see Jesse and Katie. And so after Aurora, I guess I'll check in with you, Jesse, about whether you want to go, or should we let Katie speak first?
So while the conversation with the DOE was going on, I was listening and I couldn't really speak because I think some of you saw the little person being a little annoying. But I was hearing Leslie's comment at the end, the last comment, about the worksheets and you have to put out the fires for 2 hours over here. And I heard the comment back, and I think that is something to just address. There is Leslie, I thought you made a very good point, right? Because if you're having, and the answer back, I didn't get to say anything at that time, but the answer back I didn't think was the most profound, because if we're having kids come in who don't really know the language, that this is the first time they're in this kind of setting, right? It isn't that far-fetched that they're not able to keep up with that teacher, with that grade, and the teacher needs to pay a little bit more attention. So is one teacher keeping up with 32, 35 students in a class with limited support and not being able to teach just to the kids who are learning for that grade in our community, right? And on task, and not giving extra support to the other kids that need her or him. So how do we deal with that?
I mean, Aurora, you hit thank you for kind of following up on that. I mean, I didn't want to say, but the point was, I mean, there are teachers who leave the classroom crying. You know what I mean? I mean, they're just spread so thin because they have to address this incoming group with limited resources. And then, the students that have been there with limited resources that they had to begin with. So, and I understand that we're advocating for summer programs and outside emotional help, and that's good. I mean, that should also be there, but I think the in-classroom stuff is so important right now, and I think it's severely being affected from what I hear. Actually, Charlie can probably, I mean, there's some parents that maybe, I know there's more maybe at a 111 or 51, I think those might be more heavily hit. But I don't know if Charlie can shed some light. That's just what I was hearing from teachers and parents. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I think other schools, based on this data, are in the 30-something% versus 20% with my kid's school. But I think right now, PS2 and 2 has got a handle on it, and my two kids' teachers are doing great. But yeah, it's undeniable. If you have an incoming population of 20 to 35% of kids who don't speak the language, and it's not a dual language bilingual program, then it's tough.
And I'm so sorry, Charlie, but correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember, and I haven't been in 2-on-2 in quite some time, but the last time I recall, it was a grouping system. And so there were already 2 teachers, I thought, in the classroom because it was a grouping method. So that makes it a little bit easier, but I'm not sure if they were still doing that because this was
they do a looping system there where you have the same teacher 2 years in a row, and there's 2 teachers per grade, but it is after pre-K when you have the paraprofessional, it's just one teacher in the classroom. Although they often have like student teachers from teachers college, that type of thing. It's okay. One teacher.
but it's just one teacher. But so they are getting some extra support, even if it is just the student teacher, or even if there, there is a little bit of extra support there, where PS 111 and PS 51 is not getting that extra support. And that was the difference about 212.
That may be the case. I can't speak for those other schools. I know PS 212 teachers do not always have a student teacher, but often they do. They'll have one for a semester and they'll go away, and then they'll make it a new one in the spring, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Aurora, was there a motion that you wanted to make, or wanted to let this sort of organically go back and forth a little bit, because you are raising, a valid question that should be discussed, but don't want to move on if there's something else that you wanted to suggest?
I mean, I guess I would just suggest if there was a possibility to add even student teachers into these other schools for September. If we're going to have the same number of kids and they're going to need the same support, if we could ask for student teachers to come in.
What I would say quickly is we could write a letter making that suggestion. Two things I'll say. One is that the district is in a very challenging financial position for the foreseeable future with the amount of students that it's lost. And so adding additional staffing might be very tricky in many schools and districts. And the second thing I would say is this is a real challenge, and definitely one that many teachers and principals are likely feeling and needing to work through. At the same time, a New York City public school classroom or school having students who are at different places in terms of their English proficiency is something that teachers have been working with for many, many years, as long as they've been teaching. So this is a different degree of challenge potentially, but not necessarily an entirely new and different situation. And I say that as a former teacher and a former principal who's worked in settings where there were large numbers of students who were at different levels of English language proficiency, including no English. And so I think we're having the right conversation about what should the system do to respond to this, but we should keep in mind that these are trained professionals who have been working with students who have the characteristics that we're describing prior to the proportion of them increasing in their classrooms.
Can I jump in with a thought or two on this? So a couple things. So to Aurora, I think you raised such important questions, but I know it gets a little tricky because, I was very involved with a PTA. I was a PTA president for many years at a school, and there were often suggestions by parents saying, "Oh my God, clearly the teachers need help, and we should have student teachers, or we should have they had all sorts of ideas. The parents did, and frankly, for quite a while, the teachers were like, "Slow your roll, people." They said that actually gives us somebody extra that we have to supervise in the classroom, and it's actually not what we want. So I think I'm just wondering, we had talked maybe, was it 2 years ago, about trying to do a survey as we're approaching the end of the school year. And I was wondering, could we do a 2 or 3 question survey of parents, who live in the district and give it out through the PTA at these schools and just say, your community board would love to hear what are 2 things you love about your school, and what are 2 things where you feel that are challenges, so that we can help identify how we might be able to help, right? So I guess I'm just thinking we hear various comments different people make, but I think it'd be great if we could do some sort of survey, to hear from parents. And I'm wondering, but I don't know if this would be considered overreaching or something, but could we also survey teachers? And just say, we'd love, as we're thinking about ways to support the schools in our district, we'd love to hear what are 1 or 2 things that you think would be helpful, right? And that would at least help guide us then. And I presume it would also help us as we're thinking about, budget requests in the fall, if we could ask those questions. But I don't know if that ends up looking like we're sort of stepping in, with the community education councils or something. So, so that's one question. So one question is whether or not we could do surveys and if we could make a motion like that. But then back to Josephine's question earlier about the data, and we didn't get very much this evening about Summer Rising. I'm thinking, couldn't we write a letter thanking him for coming and saying, you know, there were some questions we still had about some information we'd like, and just go ahead and ask those questions for the data and try and get those answers now and not wait until the fall or something. Because yeah, I agree. Like, to your point, I think Josephine, I have to imagine that there's way more demand right now for Summer Rising than there are actually seats for. And it would really be great to know that now. And if there's a need for us to advocate for some expansion or changes this summer, or, you know, more seats, it would be great to get some of that data now. So I guess those are my two questions. One about the survey, and then two, can we thank them but ask for the data now?
So Josephine has her hand up. I want to give her a chance to respond. The second of the two sounded a lot like a motion, though. So we have to see if there's a second for that before we do anything else. Does anyone want to make a second on Katie's suggestion that we write a letter saying thank you for coming in and request more data? It looked like a hand from Josephine, so I'm going to consider that a second. And Josephine, why don't you go ahead, come off mute, and if you want to speak to this and other things, go for it.
Thank you. I think that's a great idea to definitely do a letter and ask for more information. To the other point about the student teachers, you know, Leslie and I did some work on this a while back with COVID. But I think that, you know, Katie does bring up a very important point. My child also went to Midtown West, by the way, and I think it's a great system having the student teacher in with the teachers since the classrooms are so large. However, you know, every school has a different setup. And so I think that these principals work very closely together. Like Ed and Kay are great friends, PS 212 and PS 111. So, you know, Ed knows what's going on there. You know, I guess if we're going to do a survey, I mean, I would love to hear from more parents. I think that that's something that we should always be doing as a community board. So I think I would, you know, definitely recommend that maybe we do a survey for parents. But if we're going to do one for teachers as well, then I think that we need to also include principals in that, because I don't want it to seem like we're not, you know, going through the right channels. And I, you know, highly respect the work that they're doing. So I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Josephine. Let's loop back on this question of survey in a moment, but let's make sure that we vote on the motion on the floor that's been raised by Katie and seconded by Josephine, unless Jesse, was there something you wanted to get in first?
I was just going to say, if we're limiting the letter to, unless we feel that it is worthy, it's a particular need to be a full board letter. If we're limiting the letter to a set of questions and a thank you, we can easily make that an administrative letter, because we're not making a policy or stating the board feels A or B about something, but actually just further asking the information. Right? Josephine was very nice enough to organize the questions for me. I was trying to get them to Reggie. Obviously, it did not prove much fruit today, but I think if we wanted to use that set of questions as a baseline and then add whatever we else want to do, we can get that letter out tomorrow. I mean, it just matters about saying someone's drafting it. We don't have to wait for a full board vote in June. And I think that would hopefully, I would hope, speed up the process of getting you the information, all the information you would want to have either by June or at least bare minimum, before, you're making, maybe some budget requests or something like that, except for Summer Rising is during the summer. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a full board letter unless you guys feel like it needs to be. And the other part about the survey, we can easily do a survey. I would need to work with whoever wants to draft that survey. I think we've been down this road a little bit. Sorry. Hey buddy, I'm in the middle of something. All right. Oh, okay. All right. There we go. So we can easily do a survey. We can draft that up through online, like we've done, as Leslie knows, we've done it with the budget. So and we can get it out to folks, and so we can try our best.
Awesome. Just to check my understanding, Jesse, we do still need to vote on an admin letter, right?
Yeah, you can vote on an ad. Yes, you could definitely vote on an ad. I just wanted to say, like, we didn't have to think of it as waiting all the way till the first week of June, and then it getting sent down and then taking another 30 days. I think we would, maybe send it to, it sounds like Kelly knows everything, so send it to Kelly and hopefully get the information there. Or if there's another person Josephine knows.
Yeah, the Angela, the person who's over summarizing, definitely send it to her.
Right, exactly. Let's not send it to the commissioner and then we all know where that, or the chancellor, I'm sorry, and that goes, we know where that goes. So
yeah. I'll say just very quickly, I think this is the right move and plan to be one of the votes. Hopefully everyone will join in favor of this motion. I do think there will be a gap between the information we would like the DOE to share and the information that they actually have and are able to access. All in favor of an administrative letter, which both says, thank you very much for coming, and shares our outstanding questions, please raise your hands, either visually or using the raise hand feature. Thank you. Anyone opposed? I'll give folks a second to put their hands down. Any abstentions? Anyone present not eligible? All right.
And I'd be happy to help start the draft and then send it around to anybody else who wants to help give it some thought.
That is very much appreciated. And unless anyone was really wanting to do the legwork instead of Katie, we'll take you up on it. Is it helpful, Josephine, if she shares that with you, and would anyone else like to see it before it goes out?
I mean, that's fine. I was wondering though if Katie was going to do the survey. Because if you do the survey, then I'm happy to do the admin letter since you mentioned the survey. Unless somebody else wants to do the survey, I'm fine with it.
All right, Josephine, I accept that deal.
Really quickly,
if the survey gets approved, we'll do it that way.
Yes, on the survey piece, I do think before doing any sort of like teacher-facing survey, we would most definitely need to connect with principals, as has already been brought up. And I also think it might be healthy to check in with folks at the CEC on anything that's parent/community facing that's a survey. But I would also just say, I don't know if a teacher survey, at least to me, is something that we should suggest to principals.
Mhm.
One of the things that was recently covered in Chalkbeat is that a major contributor to how overextended teachers are feeling in the system is the amount of paperwork and sort of like core instructional tasks they're being asked to do. They do already have to complete a lot of surveys over the course of the year. And so this could feel like one more ask that principals are unlikely to want to bring to their teachers. I don't bring that up because I feel like I wouldn't want to see the results of a survey. I bring it up because I think we should be strategic about what we ask for and when and from who. But curious how that lands with the group. Leslie, you got your hand up.
I just had a question. Number one, if we do a survey, how are we going to, how are we going to, I guess, put it out there, and to whom, and how are we going to do that? And B, are we going to get Chinese and Spanish language for that as well? Or Mandarin, I should say, or like what would be the languages? And I just think I think it's going to be, surveys are really, as Jesse knows, it's, to get a fair and accurate feedback, it has to be pretty level and widespread, and just what are the thoughts of the group on how to do that?
Aurora, then Katie.
Yeah, just to your point, Kit, I think that we should ask actually the principals, the teachers are the frontline workers, and they might be reluctant to share it with them, but they know their classrooms, right? And they know what they need, and they know what they don't need or they don't want. And so maybe that would be the one survey that they actually want to do for next year, but we won't know if we don't ask.
I think it would be helpful. I mean, I take your point, Kit, that we may have to sort of, maybe start with the parent survey and then see if we can figure out by going through the principals if there is an opportunity for a teacher survey, but we should at least start with the parent survey. And Leslie, to your question, I think what we had talked about in the past is that that we can, develop a very short survey. It's like 3 questions max, maybe 2. It has to be very short. And then we can make it available on our website, with a link. And then we let the PTAs know. We get messages out to the PTAs, hey, we're doing this because we want input, because we're going to be making funding decisions and requests to the city. So would you please send this link out to your parents? We can, I'm sure Jesse could tell us, but we could probably put it on Link NYC and that sort of thing. But anyway, it's its own thing that we're not giving hard copies to the school, but we are letting the PTAs, we're encouraging the PTAs to send it out to their parents. And when we've done stuff before, at least I know on the PTAs, that we were able to get things translated pretty easily into a couple different languages, and that can be done on the link. So I would think that's how we could do it. But I'm sure other people who are far more tech savvy than me can give some suggestions too. But I think there is a way, if we make it short, that we could, and then we, I assume if we vote on it here that we want to do a survey, would it have to be approved at full board before it went out? I don't think so, right?
You're asking for information, you're not making a policy.
Yep. So if we could get it out, whatever, within a week or 10 days, and just, again, tell the PTAs to get it out to their parents if possible, and give some, response date. It would be great to get some input. Did that help, Leslie?
So let me try and repeat back what I think is being proposed here. We would put together a survey, which we would initially do for parents and caregivers, and we would try to distribute it through, our network and through the PTAs that we have relationships with, and then we would engage with principals about if and how we might do a survey, or just learn more about what teachers are currently experiencing and what support they would like. Does that capture the conversation so far? I see some nodding heads. Someone want to make a motion to that effect?
I move that we approve what Kit just said. You said it so eloquently, Kit.
All right. Sounds like from Jesse, all we need to do is vote on this, and then we can move ahead with it. We don't need to do another round of voting at full board. So all in favor, please raise your hand so we can see it. We're using the raise hand feature. Thank you, everybody. Anyone opposed? Mercedes and Maria, yep. Was thinking those hands might go down. Anyone abstaining? Anyone present not eligible? All right. Go ahead, Jesse.
I just wanted to highlight that someone has their hand up in the attendees section. I don't know if it's been particular to the DOE topic or something else, but
Leslie, is Julian Richardson
That's
by
Julie.
chance?
Yeah, that's Julian, who I mentioned
All right.
earlier.
Okay.
let's press pause on what we were talking about. Let's bring Julian over and let's give him a chance to share his 2 minutes, and then we can pick right back up.
Tamara, whatever you have looks delicious. So right now, these meetings get in the way of dinner, you know what I mean?
Hey, Julian. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everybody. My name is Trevor. I'm the father of Julian. Thank you for having us and letting us speak for a couple of minutes. Julian is a scout, and this is part of his communication merit badge requirement. But it's also very reflective of our life in Hell's Kitchen and the feelings of a lot of families nearby. So he just wanted to talk for 2 minutes. So.
Okay. Thank you, Trevor. Julian, we're eager to hear your speech. You'll have 2 minutes, and then we will move on. So you can start whenever you're ready.
Hello, everybody. My name is Julian Richardson. I'm a 13-year-old resident of Hell's Kitchen, and I've lived here for all 13 of those years. And my family has lived in the neighborhood for over 25 years. I attended PS 111 for most of those, as you were talking about with the DOE board. I have noticed some major issues with the neighborhood that I live that I'd like to share. The first of these issues is with the police, or more accurately, lack of police. There are never any police officers on patrol west of 8th Avenue, and that has to change. I frequently travel through Times Square and other surrounding areas, notice a heavy police presence in their areas. The only time Hell's Kitchen has a police presence is after a violent crime happens, like a shooting, stabbing, or armed robbery. That's too late. This all relates to a much larger problem of crime in Hell's Kitchen. Parents we know are terrified to send their kids out on their own, even for short distances. Much of this can be mitigated by a stronger police presence. My family is in the arts and entertainment, and having tourists frightened to come back to the theater district is a very bad thing. Another issue is the covered corridors, scaffolded areas, and passages between blocks. I often walk through these, and there are always homeless people sleeping, drugs being sold, and criminal activities being committed. At the last full board meeting, the 19th Street corridor was mentioned as being especially bad. However, in my experience, this is a very frequent problem in our neighborhood as well. Lastly, pedestrian safety really has to improve. Particularly, e-bikes and fully motorized vehicles zooming on the bike lanes, and often disregarding pedestrians and safety signals. I sincerely hope conditions improve in our Hell's Kitchen neighborhood, as so much focus seems to be put on these other areas. So many families and friends have moved away from our area. And again, we want to make everyone feel safe again, including tourists. Thank you all for your time, and particularly to Leslie, Maria, and Matt for having me here.
We appreciate it, Julian.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm Julian.
Thanks for sneaking us in between school, homework, and dinner. And please feel free to come back anytime.
And Julian, just a second. One of the things that I was thinking when I was listening to you speak is that maybe what you're speaking about might be good to stay at full board. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think.
No, I totally agree with that. I think that's a very good idea to say that full board as well as here. That's
Okay.
a very good suggestion, Maria.
All right. Okay, cool.
All right.
And
well, we
may I
won't,
say, I'm sorry, Kit, may I say, Julian, congratulations. What high school did you get into when you're a graduate from PS 111?
I got into Brooklyn Tech recently, so that's cool.
So good job. Congrats.
Well, congratulations,
For
sir. We will not keep you any longer tonight, but appreciate you joining us. Hope to see you in the future, whether that's full board or coming back to this committee during open session again.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's segue back to
nice night,
conversation. Go ahead, Julian.
I was just saying goodbye. I hope you guys have a nice night.
Right back at you. Let's resume the conversation. Anything else on the DOE piece, or should we move on to DSNY and graffiti? Sounds like we're moving on. Any comments, any suggestions, any motions related to what we heard from the folks from DSNY or the person from DSNY? David, go ahead.
Sorry about that. And I'll need some guidance with Jesse whether this is appropriate or not. While we were in the middle of the, I actually spoke after he left. I spoke with the chairperson of the hate crimes panel, and she was saying that, you know, while they drawing SWAT stickers or whatever for the hate crimes, to notify, if we could put something in the letter and maybe CC Gary Marcus from the New York Police Department Hate Crimes Unit regarding if he sees, you know, any types of, you know, visceral graffiti like that. So maybe if we send the letter and include part of the letter that, if we do administrative letter, a little piece of that, and then we could, so we can have him work, especially in our area, maybe start as a pilot, because we've had a lot of anti-gay crimes here. Where we can include that, where he can outreach to Captain Gary Marcus if he sees some type of bad graffiti like that.
So I think because we would be suggesting that they operate differently, this maybe doesn't qualify as an administrative letter if we're asking them to add communication with another agency when they encounter something that is in any way bigoted.
Because the reason why I say that,
I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, David. I'm just saying in terms of protocol, I think that's my understanding of how we would do it. And
well, he already contacts NYPD. It's just a unit within NYPD, because the thing is, if a lot of times if you erase something, then it can't be investigated. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, totally understand that, David. I'm not disagreeing with anything that you're saying. We would need to, one, have a motion for a letter, two, have everyone vote, and if the letter is approved, then we can move forward. But
well, that's what I'm asking for, if Jesse thinks it's appropriate.
You want me to go, Kit? It's up to you all as to what's appropriate. I think I would say, I think I would think before we write the letter, just because there was to me similar, there was a lot of information we wanted to understand first. I think this is one of those protocol ones where I think we want to clearly understand what the protocol is before we draft the letter. So I'm happy to follow up with Mr. Caruso and with Marissa, and anybody you suggest, David, obviously as well, just to clearly make sure that what we are concerned about is actually an issue, that there's a gap there that we're suggesting that need be changed.
No, that'd be great.
Let me do that, and I will certainly get back to you as quickly as possible, and we can make for next month if we want to make that a letter, we could make that a letter.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Matt, did you also have something you wanted to get?
Yeah, I know. I think I agree with Jesse's point. I think I was surprised to hear that there wasn't that coordination. So I think it's important to get clarity on that. And Jesse, yeah, I was just going to say, maybe it could be brought up at like district service cabinet or something. Just make sure that the agencies, like what's going on, if they're talking to each other. So yeah, anyway, that was my recommendation. So, but you addressed that, Jesse. I think that's the right path forward.
Any other questions, comments, suggestions on the DSNY piece? All right. Last item, the CUNY presentation on their program, the School of Labor and Urban Studies. Anything anyone wanted to bring up related to that? All right. I think we are officially into new business. I have one item, but does anyone have anything that they wanted to bring up that was not on the agenda? Now is the time. All right. Looks like we are going to get out of here well before 8:30 tonight. But my one item is on a personal note. This is potentially my last meeting as the co-chair of this committee. I did not re-up on my term because, as you all have seen tonight, I have a lot going on at home and an increasing amount going on in the workplace. And so just want to quickly say thank you to each and every one of you. I've learned a lot over the years from the opportunity to serve on this committee and on the board with all of you. It's been a really fun experience as well, having the opportunity to hopefully give back a little bit and to try to help us advocate for the folks in our neighborhoods. So I appreciate all of you, and hopefully I'll see you in the neighborhood. And maybe at some point, the Manhattan Borough President will make another mistake and reappoint me if I choose to reapply. There will be a process I have no details on that will be led by the chair and our wonderful district manager and Alan, my awesome co-chair. Our chair is also wonderful. I should have said that. To figure out what makes sense in terms of the leadership of this committee moving forward. And so if folks are interested in taking on a leadership role, would encourage anyone and everyone to let the board know. I'm sure Jesse or the chair will be in touch about when and how it's appropriate to do so. So that is my new business item. And if anyone like me is stepping back from the community board and wants to say goodbye and a thank you, we'll open it up to others.
Thanks, Kit. Yeah, I would also like to say the same. You said it much more eloquently than I could, but I very much appreciate the opportunity to have served, with this group and on the board, and it's meant a lot to me over the past 4 years. So thank you.
Wait, Blake, are you leaving too?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. What is going on here?
I also want to say thank you. I'm also leaving. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve. I'll be at OMB, so I'm not going too far. Just now, you can ask me other questions.
Boo! Like my whole ACES world is crashing in front of me.
So now I'm triply sad, but
I'm kind of disappointed all y'all are leaving, to be honest.
Oh.
Yeah, you guys are going to be missed.
It's true.
Kid, thank you very much. I think we've all learned a lot from you. Just sad. And Blake, you put a lot of work into things, really appreciate your advocacy for what happens on the street. Your data research, terrific, really commendable. Sabrina, your insights into a lot of what's going on in your world, I think opened up a lot of eyes for folks. So you'll all be missed, really. Your shoes will be hard to fill. But thank you very much.
Bravo and bravo to all three of you.
Yes, best wishes to you all. You will be missed. Thank you so much for all your work.
Boy, oh boy.
That's a sad note to end on. Someone has to.
Yeah, right.
I know, no one wants emotion. I'm not
have a good,
Maria, do you know if Carl standing behind you is available to apply to chair this committee?
Go ahead, say hello to everyone. My neighbor. I think maybe we are all going to be due. This committee is due for maybe going out together to celebrate. I think that'll be something that we do.
I haven't seen everybody here in real life, so.
Okay. Say that again.
I don't think I've seen every single person in this committee in real life. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that would be nice. Jesse, you're invited too.
What is this? I didn't hear what you said. We're gonna have a live celebration.
Yeah, I think we should get together, this committee, to celebrate Kit and Blake and Sabrina and their service. They've been really good members for CB4.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Also, maybe the new members that are coming in, we could welcome them at the same time if we know who they are or how that's going to work.
If it can work, yeah.
That's a great suggestion, Maria.
Yes,
Maria,
thank
I
you.
love how like you're like, if it can work, you're a little like hostile to change here. I mean, I get it. Like they were all really great members and I didn't even get to meet them in person, but the resistance to change.
That's just Maria's disappointed mom face. That's fine. That's what they all got. I know that face. I get it often sometimes.
I think
All
she has
right.
to process this later.
Well, before I blush too hard or break out into tears, I'm going to call this meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
No.
So moved.
All right.
Thank
All
you,
in favor, feel free to hop off Zoom. I do hope that we can all get together, and no matter what, hopefully I'll bump into each and every one of you on the sidewalk.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you,
Thank
Kit.
you, guys.
Thank you,
All right,
Kit.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Blake.
Thanks.